Welcome to episode 40 of the What Happens Next podcast, the podcast where we explore the changes you're going through as you're thinking about the next chapter of your life. And I'm really honoured to be interviewing for this episode Ben Price, who will talk about the art of living well. Ben comes from a ex-military background, but he was once overweight and unfit, smoking and drinking too much. At some point, he transformed his health, competing in an Ironman, and now coaches others to positive health through his company, Witterings Fitness. Now, Ben has a holistic approach to health and well-being, and he's changed that focus over time, where his initial focus was just on getting fitter, but now he looks at a bit more of a holistic, nuanced perspective. I know you're going to learn a lot from this interview with Ben, particularly if you're on your own fitness journey and you're trying to get a little bit fitter, stronger, more mobile, so that you can live the best next chapter of your lives. Enjoy the interview.
Good morning, and that was a bit high. Welcome to What Happens Next with Chris, James, and I'm really excited today to be talking to Ben. Now, Ben and I met probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago now, Ben. It was a little while ago, wasn't it? And we got into this conversation about physical well-being, but actually the importance of thinking about our well-being in a sort of more rounded context. So what I'm really excited about today is to share with you Ben's thoughts, not only around the area of physical well-being, but also looking at how it fits into the entire picture. Ben, I know you're a new dad as well. How's that going?
Yeah, brilliant. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And it's more important for me, it's been really important for me to prioritize all of this, my sleep, my well-being this last couple of weeks, because, everyone says it's going to be terrible and you're not going to be sleeping. But actually, if you prioritize these things, then it's actually a really lovely week. It's a really lovely time.
So you're sleeping well. How's the baby doing?
Yeah, I mean, as a man, obviously, you don't have such a rough ride of things as the mum does. But I've got to pick up the slack in the mornings. So, baby's good.
Good, fantastic, great to hear. So, I know all about you because I've done my research on guests. But for the benefit of our guests, tell us a bit about you.
Yep. So, Ben Price, I'm ex-military, so I used to work in the British Army and was at one point very unfit. I was actually overweight and couldn't join the army because I had to go away and lose some weight, which is often surprising to people. I used to smoke, I used to drink too much. I was not fit and not healthy at all, didn't prioritize my health and well-being, and went from that to eventually completing an Ironman triathlon and sorting my stuff out, starting health and wellbeing coaching company called Witterings Fitness, and now coach other people to achieve health and wellbeing, predominantly people in our local area, but also remotely as well. So we work with a lot of over 60-year-olds and a lot of entrepreneurs, and sometimes entrepreneurs who are over 60 who haven't quite given up on life yet. So, which is great. So we really enjoy working with entrepreneurs. Find that quite exciting.
And what I really like is, and when we've had this on the podcast before, often the people who are the real experts are the ones that have gone through challenges personally and found their way to whatever success looks like for them in that space for them first before they started teaching other people. What did you learn on your journey to getting fitter?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, so much. So obviously, when you start trying to get fit and healthy, as with most people, you start with the fitness aspect and you start just going to work out more, starting to run. And so I kind of did that quite blindly, really. Even with the army, no one really teaches you exactly how to move properly, how to avoid injuries from propping up. So therefore, I got lots of injuries, and I didn't look at my health and well-being as a holistic approach, which is what I do now. And it's very overwhelming as well. You start learning about fitness. There's so much involved in fitness, and then you realize, I should probably be looking at my nutrition. And then there's a hell of a lot. There's so many rabbit holes to go down with nutrition. And then it's, there's this other area of how to recover from exercise and stress. And then there's all these other things. So I'm a simplifier. So I look at all these things. And when I find something which is really good, I add it into my score, my measurement. So I call it the Super Six wellbeing assessment. And so that simplifies all of these different aspects and components of well-being. And so now when somebody says, well, I just want to improve my overall well-being, you can say, right, let's measure it, and let's actually see where you're at. And then
really like that. Tell me a little bit about what because as you said, being involved in the military was quite a focused way of doing it, but you picked up a lot of injuries. What did you learn from that experience? What skills, attributes, things that you use today have you picked up from sort of being in the army?
Yeah, lots of things. Probably the most prevalent. So core values, we got really, you get taught that when you go into the army. You get lessons from the Padre, sea drills, courage, discipline, integrity, loyalty, selfless commitment. So those sorts of things I didn't really appreciate at the time. But when you leave the military and you realize actually these are quite special things that you've been taught and you've got them in your psyche, those are actually really valuable. So some good, strong core values, things like integrity, surprising how many people don't have that, which is, I just always take it for granted that people would be like that.
I tell you what's interesting as well is, particularly for the sort of clients we work with, where they've not really identified what their core values are. And actually, for me, and I don't know about for you, I'd be interested in hearing, those are the get up in the morning stuff. Because regardless of whether I'm having a bad day or a good day, I know what I believe internally, and it's interesting, isn't it? That element. How many values did you take from the forces, and how many have you applied since and thought, actually, I don't believe that, I believe this?
Good question. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I came up with merits. So we use merits in Witterings Fitness as our core values, and so we added in M, which is move fit. So learn how to move correctly to avoid the injuries before most people go into fitness, they try and start at the intensity end of the scale rather than starting on the learning to move. And that's how I started, and that's why I got injured. So if you flip that, you flip it to learn to move consistently, and then you can crank the intensity up later. So E is enjoy it. E is enjoy it. So a lot of people just don't have fun with their well-being. It's like a chore, and they kind of do it just to pay lip service to it. So I think it's really important just to have fun with it, because if you have fun with something, you're gonna keep it up for long term. Merits. So R is remain humble, and the reason that I put that in there is because you gotta take an honest look at where you're at and be coachable. So as a client, you got to be coachable to improve these things. And when you open your ears and listen to people, then you make much faster progress. Something I definitely didn't do in my early days. I is integrity, so that's still there. And T is take ownership. So take ownership of those Super Six components.
Yeah.
And then S is show up. So 80% of success is just showing up. So therefore, if you show up for your coaching session, even if you're having a bad day, you're going to get progress.
You got to do the work, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your Super Six. Is that because I know when I was doing the sort of research on the website, you've got thinking, moving, nourishing, protecting, and recovering as that. But I'm only counting 5. So if I missed one, or the super 6 different.
Yeah, the 6 are different. So I used to have the big 5, so that might be where the confusion is. Fairly recently, we added in connect, because connect
Right.
is something that actually has a profound impact on our overall well-being. I've met
100%.
quite a few people who are quite unhealthy in other areas of their life, but they've just got a really good group of mates around them, and they seem to be ticking along quite fine.
I read some research the other day about the impact of loneliness, and if I'm perfectly frank, particularly in I'm 46 now, but particularly when I was in my probably early to mid 30s, I was social a lot, but a lot of what I was doing socially was to build the business because of work. And interestingly, I read an article probably when I was 38, 39 about loneliness. And this guy said, look, I'm not superficially, I'm not lonely, but I haven't got any non-work friends. And I've had to actually make the effort in my 40s to make sure that I've got that sort of social engagement, that connection that's not about the work. And it's interesting, isn't it? That social well-being, the research I've read is sort of loneliness, particularly in later life, is as unhealthy as 15 cigarettes a day. And you turn around and go, so what do we do about that? How do we, particularly as, and these may be a stereotype, so I may, please feel free in the comments on this video to let me know whether I'm wrong or not. But I look at my wife and I look at other women in my life and go, you're better at this. So I'm saying particularly men. I'm saying particularly men, but I might be wrong. Other men might be better than me. How, as humans, but specifically as men, if we are rubbish at it, do we get better at creating really good relationships and friendships?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think your answer is sort of found in, well, the reason for that is that if we went back to like caveman prehistoric times, and again, it sounds very sexist, but there's probably an element of truth to it, is women traditionally would have been the gatherers,
the nurturers, right?
Yeah, the nurturers, the gatherers, the together in the tribe, whereas men are kind of out hunting, and they might be out hunting together, but they would be doing something, and they're doing something kind of active. And so my answer is, if we applied that to the modern day, I think the best thing for men is to do something, a sport, go hunting, whatever, and just go for a walk or just do something with other like guys rather than just going for a coffee. Like women tend to, again, it sounds sexist, doesn't it? But tend to be all right doing that, going for a coffee and chatting. Men don't really do that. Typically, So we have this.
There's a really good project that, funny enough, Gaz's dad goes to, that I've written about a little bit, called Man Shed. Which is these places where you can go along, and it's like woodwork class for adults. You go along and make stuff. And I really like the idea of that because it feels practical, but actually what you're doing is sort of building those social bonds. And that doing and then building social bonds at the same time, I think is probably important. So that's connecting. Tell me a little bit more about the rest of the Super Six.
I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. I know that when I conducted the interview, I learned loads. And I always learn loads from listening to people who have expertise in a particular area, so I can share it with you to help you with your What Happens Next journey. Now, currently, I'm writing the What Happens Next book. It's nearly done. I'm still working hard. It's due to be released in 2025. And to be on the waiting list, so you're one of the first people to get access to the book, simply visit whathappensnext.life/book.
Okay, so you've got move, nourish, and we use the word move rather than fitness specifically because it's about quality of movement, not just going and get necessarily fit, although fitness is important. One of the greatest measures of your longevity would be your VO2 max, so your cardio output, which is easily measurable. So, but also moving the quality of your joints. Have you got pain in your joints? If you have, it's not the end of the world. You can actually remedy that, and so that was my story. I got lots of injuries, had pains in my joints, and figured out how to fix them. So that's move. Do you move enough? Do you move well enough? Nourish rather than just nutrition, because Nourish covers more. People might have heard of Wim Hof, like the breathing. So you get oxygen in, not just fruits and vegetables, hydration, vitamin D, that sort of stuff. So nourishing your body is important as well. And the reason that we're hungry and we overeat is because most of us eat for fullness. I was certainly brought up to eat for fullness, not for nourishment. And actually, and the reason our bodies are hungry is because our bodies are clever, and it knows like you haven't nourished, so you need to eat some more.
That's interesting though, Ben. I think the point you're making is nourishment isn't only about nutrition; it's about what we intake. Does that in your model? Does that include water? And where does water fit in?
Yeah, hydration's in Nourish. Yeah, and so I've got sort of 5 points in each one. So that's one of my big 5 of each of those points. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got moving, we've got nourishing. You've got thinking, protecting, and recovering. Help me understand those.
So protect is a lot about your environment. So right now we're both sat down. So if we were sat down all day in a stuffy old office, you could be doing the right movement, you could be doing the right nourishment, but then if you go and sit in an office all day or sit in a room, look at a screen, which so many of us do, then you can be undoing a lot of that hard work. So that's protect, and protect means, just protecting yourself. We can't necessarily always get away from our environments because we are generally working on computers, but just doing the best you can to make sure it's minimizing the impact on your body. Yeah. So that's protect.
So give me a practical example of how you might do that.
Yeah. So I've got a stand-up desk, and I've put my desk as close as I can to a window. So I'm getting some vitamin D. If I'm not in a window, if I don't have a window or it's winter, I have a lamp, which mimics sunlight. And there's lots of reasons for that. Vitamin D, I don't know if we get vitamin D from the lamp, but it definitely affects our eyes, which affect our circadian rhythm, which then helps us sleep. So then we're talking about recovery. So recovery is one of the other core parts of it. So these things all interlink. And then sleeping, so protecting yourself from like noises at night that might be waking you up, light pollution that coming into your room. So simple things like just wear an eye mask and earplugs. Make sure your room's as quiet as it can be. And I actually recently moved house, and a big reason for that was because we could hear the road at night from our house. So that was quite, it was affecting us quite a lot. Have fresh air, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. It's interesting, isn't it? Oh, and thinking's the last one. Where do you stand on thinking? What do we need to do to make sure we're thinking in the right way? Is that about mindset? Is that about curiosity? Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, so mindset tends to put the word mindset can turn a lot of people off, but it is essentially mindset. So that's why I use the word think. How we think is so important. And so the easiest, if someone's fairly new to this concept, why do people get heart attacks? Is it because of their poor nutrition? Possibly. Is it because they don't move enough? Possibly. But most people who get heart attacks are stressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're mentally stressed out. So they're thinking in a particular way, which is causing stress, and it manifests literally in their body, in their heart, and they have a heart attack one day. So there's some really interesting things, research around how we think and how it actually impacts our body directly. So surprise, surprise, the body and mind are connected after all. So that's really interesting. So how we think is important, and then like how we think about ourselves. Are we grateful for being who we are? Most of us, I certainly didn't have any idea of this gratitude sort of practice. So that's important. And just like the people in the media that you surround yourself with, it all affects our minds. There's quite a famous quote, which is the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think it's actually been proven wrong. It's not the 5. It's everyone. It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. There's a really good book on the impact of stress called the Body Counts the Score. Which is
I just downloaded that about 2 days ago.
It's a little medical.
Yeah,
but it's it goes into quite a lot. But interestingly, you talked about Wim Hof earlier. I've literally just started Wim Hof's book. I've just finished reading the book from Arnie, bizarrely, but I've just started Wim Hof's book, and he talks about the potential positive impact of some stress, and actually how challenging and testing our bodies and our minds and everything might be a good thing. How do we get the balance right between positive stress that builds resilience? And I know resilience, we've had the conversation on what happens next before about resilience being a bit of a interesting word, but the positive impact of building resilience by challenging ourselves and potentially getting into flow states versus too much stress. Is that perspective? What do you think?
Some of it is definitely perspective, because some things that stress me out might not stress you out. Like if we had to talk about numbers right now, I would be stressed and you wouldn't. So some of it's perspective, but most of it, stress, there's actually a bell curve of performance and distress and eustress. So eustress is kind of a positive stress. So it's just enough stress. And that could be mental, it could be physical. So let's take Wim Hof stuff, for example. So Wim Hof, is a bit of cold exposure in there, there's breathing, there's mindset, but the cold exposure is the stress that he's talking about. So if you spend a certain amount of time in the cold, you see a performance increase. But if you spend too long in the cold, that would start to drop off and you'd be distressed. And so the same thing happens in our minds, because with work stress, like a little bit of it is enough to actually increase his performance. That's why people set in the Olympics, they set world records at the Olympics.
Stretch goals.
There's just enough stress to kind of get them to the top of that peak. But then also some people fall off that curve and they are distressed and they freeze and there's no performance whatsoever. And they've been, because they just built up too much. So getting it right.
Get the balance right. And I think the interesting thing, I mean, you're like all of the points you've mentioned that I definitely agree with, and certainly, your Super 6 fits in our What Happens Next model really well, but just in different places. What ones do you reckon people ignore, underrate, under-discuss? Where do we need to have better conversations around that Super 6?
Oh, good question. So we actually have quite a lot of data on that because we collect everybody's scores. So most people know about movement. Most people are moving enough. Probably most people are moving too much, actually. Not most people. Most people aren't moving enough. But those who are aware of exercise and how that benefits you are doing too much. So you've got two things going on. So not many people who are just nailing that, bang on. But most people are kind of aware of it, are doing it. Most people know about nutrition. and nourishment, but probably aren't doing it. No one's. It's very rare that you meet people who are doing too much of that. Not many people really understand protect and recover. There's the recovery side. There's a guy who I've recently discovered called Brian Johnson, not the guitarist, but he's a billionaire in the USA somewhere, and he's trying to live forever. He reckons he can.
Yeah, he's the guy who got the blood of his son or something, wasn't he?
There's lots of clickbait about him. If you actually listen to him talk, he thinks he's gonna, because of technology, he thinks he's going to get to the point where he will, what does he call it, escape velocity, where we actually, the speed of technology, reaches a point where he can do it. But his number one thing, so he's the most tested guy on the planet.
He is. I mean, to be fair to him, and that you're right, there is a lot of inflammatory conversations. I listened to him. I think he did a diary of a CEO that was really good. And I might have heard him on something else. But the interesting conversation was, he's a data guy, isn't he? Everything is tested and measured.
And his number one thing is sleep. Sleep is number one thing.
His number one big thing is what?
Sleep, quality sleep.
Yeah.
And so many of us wear that as a badge of pride. And recently becoming a dad, everyone says there's like a mind virus. I've noticed everybody says, say goodbye to your sleep. And sleep's going to be hard. But I realize that most people are not prioritizing their sleep anyway. So therefore, when you have a kid, obviously it gets worse. So for me, I prioritize it. In fact, I know about this mind virus, so I'm going to prioritize it even more. 100%. I've got earplugs, headphones. I'm like, eat early, all the rest of it.
I was saying to somebody the other day, that's the area that I need to have a bit more energy on. But I do love a nap. So how from a fitness perspective, do naps come into play, or should it be 8 hours and then sort of go to bed early, and then how do you feel about that?
I think there's some good research around naps.
I not the way I do it. My ones are like hour and a half long.
Oh, okay. It might be. It might be
a bit long.
If you feel like you need a nap, then maybe that's a sign that you didn't sleep well. But the only real way to do it would be to measure. So I measure my sleep, and then I make notes. What affected it? What do I think? Like last night I had a poor sleep. I ate quite late. I had some chocolate quite late. Maybe that was why. I actually tried to go to bed early, which also probably wasn't a good thing actually, because I wasn't really tired enough.
Right.
So
But how important? Because it sounds like the day you make those decisions, you and your client. How important is that data? How do you use it once you know you like? So last night you had poor sleep, so you're going to make hopefully some change. And then how does that work when you're working with clients?
Yeah. So what we do with our clients is we want to get that Super 6 score once a quarter. And because it's very overwhelming. All this stuff I'm talking about is very overwhelming for most people. So how do we make it as simple to implement as possible? Let's just pick 3 habits per quarter. If you can do 3 habits per quarter, then so I've actually got a point system. So there's 30 points. I think there's 30 points. In the Super 6. So if you can get 3 points per quarter and you do that for 2 years, you probably didn't start at 0, so you'd be right up there. Now, obviously, some of them drop off as you implement others, so it's constantly, flowing, and it's never perfect. But that's kind of part of it. Is 80% is good enough. You're never going to. I'm not 100% squeaky clean. Like I deliberately said just now, I eat chocolate, and I ate chocolate last night. So
I tell you what's interesting as well is that perception, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot because a couple of years ago, and again, I'm a pretty slow runner, but and I'm not running at the minute. I'm on the bike quite a lot, but I did a couple of marathons a few years ago, and we had a sports psychologist come in from the charity to talk to us about training, and he was talking about the fact that there's this thing in the marathon world where people turn around and go, "Oh, what time did you do?" And they go, "I did, 4 hours, and I did 4 hours, whatever it is." And what he said was really interesting. He said, actually, talking about the times when you're training might be a motivation, but can be demotivational. And his perspective on it was going out and feeling good, or going out and saying, I'm just going to go out and enjoy it, and actually framing it in a way that takes the pressure off. How do we get the balance right between self-improvement, getting better, but also making sure that we continue to enjoy it?
Yeah, it's good. That's a good question again. It's a lot of good questions, Chris. Stuff
I've done this once or twice before, Ben.
So I think it's great to have goals. I had the goal of doing an Ironman. Did an Ironman, which is 3.8k swim, 180k on the bike, and then a marathon. And again, you get the same thing. Like, what times did you do it in? I can't even really remember. All of my goal was just to complete it and to prove that all my theory was worked, basically, and I wanted to inspire other people. I wasn't really doing it for there was probably a bit of ego, which is, we want to be an Ironman, and that's, I think you just got to play into every single thing you can do to motivate yourself in those situations. But I think you're right with like,
I don't know about you, but it's never the day. It's always the training session, like 3 weeks before, where you've got to do like sort of that's really intense, and you go, "Why am I doing this again?"
Yeah. And
whatever you can use is fine, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you don't have the why of why if you don't have that, you won't do it.
What was your why?
My why was to inspire. It was to inspire other people to achieve more than they really thought they could. Because I used to not be able to run down a road. I'd run around a block kind of thing. I'd be knackered.
Yeah.
So if I can go from that to Ironman, then that's great.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, and like that goes back to that purpose conversation we were having before. What is so my one is I want to have a positive impact every day. And I do that with my clients. I do that by sharing conversations like this, but that motivation then applies to a lot of areas in my life. And inspiration for you sounds like that's your version of positive impact, right? If I can do it, you can do it. I like that. I like that a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, inspiration's it's very motivating.
Tell me a bit, because we've got the What Happens Next model. You've got a 9-square matrix that I've seen that's amazing, by the way. Talk to me about some of the component parts of the matrix.
Okay, so it's a 9-square grid, and I actually found this. It's from really randomly from Chinese. I think I was trying to work out how to do a vision board, and I found this like Chinese vision board thing, and I was like, okay, I like this. And in the center is your health and well-being, and the point of the whole thing is like if that energy is low, I think they say chi, don't they? So chi, if that energy is low there, that's not going to spread to any other area of your life. And so if you want financial goals, if you want family goals, if you want career goals, if you want travel goals, like all of these other external things around on that grid, you just got to pump up the middle block. Like and in the army we had the thing which was the force multiplier, so the one thing that gives you an advantage over everyone else. So I call it the force multiplier. So health and well-being is the ultimate force multiplier. It affects everything else. There's nothing else really. Like you could argue finance affects other things, but we all know people who maybe are wealthy and don't have their health. So you can spend money to try and fix it, which is one of the paradoxes, which is what a lot of us do. But actually, if you flip it and you go, right, I'm just going to nail that box, prioritize it.
It's so interesting. I agree with you, by the way. We don't in what and you notice in what happens next model, we don't put money in the middle because we know that financial well-being and reaching a degree of financial independence and security removes worry, removes some of that financial stress. But I'm with you that if you haven't got your health, what's the point? Because you can't do the things you want with the body you've got to do that.
Yeah.
When we were looking at building the model, we wanted to put purpose and values in the middle. And again, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer on this, by the way. If people are making positive progress, cool.
Yeah,
but the reason for that is often, particularly when we're working with clients who are thinking about what happens next, they've been doing things so often for so long, getting to a point where they realise this ain't working for me and lost the sight of that why. So for me, starting with the purpose and values is getting to people where they are, where they're turning around and going, what do I want the next chapter to look like? And I agree, actually, like focusing on financial well-being might get you to a point where you work out, but asking those pertinent, what's your ikigai, or what's the reason you get up every day, is an interesting one. But yeah, so I completely get why physical is in the middle. What are the other component parts? So you've got financial well-being. What else have you got in there?
You've got things like career, you've got family life, you've got people, social life, travel, knowledge, self-knowledge.
Yeah.
So wisdom's one. Relationships, and I think that cover about 9.
I think we've got most of them. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Wisdom and knowledge, what's the difference?
Oh, wisdom and knowledge, what's the difference? I guess I've used those words interchangeably. You've caught me out. I guess wisdom is more experience, but you can buy experience by getting a coach. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's
knowledge.
True.
Maybe knowledge is more specific on a subject.
Yeah, it's interesting. And talk to me about why travel is part of the 9. So what about travel to you is important, do you think, when you're thinking about the matrix?
I think travel is getting out of your bubble and literally getting out of your bubble and seeing different places and experiencing, because travel is travel and people, like people you want to connect with, helpful people, and we know connection is important, but sometimes inspirational people is in there as well. So like, what people do you want to go and meet with and talk to, and that, as we talked about earlier, is actually massive for like.
I always think I always think it's interesting because, like, you think about, like, and again, it's that element of positive stress, isn't it? When that, like, sort of you intentionally pop that bubble and took somebody who's got a completely different opinion to you, and you go, this is interesting, but it's also quite challenging. But then it expands your opportunity. And I agree with you. I think for me, travel is a really good way of doing that. Because you get to meet people that you'd never normally meet and experience things you'd never normally experience in a way that works. I know that one of your favourite books is The Slight Edge. Could you tell me about it last time? Yeah. I've not read it yet. Tell me a bit about it and what the component elements of it were that really resonate with you.
Okay, so I give you the backstory of how I found that book. So that was kind of the first self-improvement, self-help type book I'd ever come across, read. And I was actually in Afghanistan with an American guy, and sort of mentioned that I was wanting to buy a property with my money, because last time I went to Afghanistan, I just blew it. I spent it on a car. Wasn't a good investment at all. And in fact, it was a liability. So I was like, right, I'm going to get an investment this time. He was like, right, you've got to read this book. It's called The Slight Edge. And I was like, okay, cool. Thinking it was about property. It wasn't really about property. It wasn't about property. Not really. It was about compound interest. But it wasn't just compound interest in money. It was like compound interest with your health, compound interest with relationships, compound interest with all of these kind of components that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And so, at the time I smoked. So one cigarette is just not a big deal. Really doesn't affect your well-being one way or the other, except it does. It's just so small that you can't tell. And obviously one cigarette is on the bottom side of the curve, and not having that cigarette would be the other side. And so then one cigarette doesn't matter. You can't tell. It's like one burger, one KFC, whatever. Whereas 10 a day for 10 years, suddenly now you've compounded those cigarettes, and now you've got cancer, and now you've got heart disease, and now you joints hurt, and everything seems to go wrong at the same time. And I wonder why that was. It was weird. And it wasn't. It was 10 years of smoking. So that really and then I sort of flipped that to be able to do a pull-up. My first pull-up. So I just try a pull-up every time you walk past a pull-up bar or something, and just used it with little things with fitness, just little things, and then just applied it to all sorts, really. But it's really useful to understand that you're going to have that eventually. You're going to have that around.
Well, I agree. I think compounding is really, really interesting. When we didn't ever told you, sorry, and I don't know if I've ever shared it on What Happens Next, actually, but when we started the podcast, so 6 or 7 years ago, when we started podcasts where we interviewed, similar to this, but we interviewed people who are doing good in the world, and we called it the Kindness Project, and we reached out to all of these charity leaders and wanted to sort of share their stories and stuff like that. I love doing it because I did it with my daughter, and it made me feel better because I was sharing the stories. Unfortunately, Ben, at the start, we weren't sharing it with too many people. We just didn't have an audience. So the first week, Russ, who produces What Happens Next and does the stuff, did the stuff for the podcast and stuff like that. I said, "How Russ? How did we get on? Did we get loads of listeners?" And he went to me, "No, we got 17." And I said, "I could go out in the street and shout at more people than that, Russ. That would be a more effective method of communication." But it's interesting. Building the audience for that was exponential. Compounding. If we look at the numbers, compounding applies. If I look at my income in my business, not a straight line, but compounding is applied. If I look at my own wealth or my I was going to say my fitness, but I think that's more of a wobbly line. Compounding in the early days that definitely applied, and I think that the big one for me, very similar to The Slight Edge, is a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, who talks about that, and it's interesting because that concept, once understood, is really powerful, right?
Game changer. Because you justify in the moment, don't you?
Yeah.
In the moment, I'll just have that cigarette. Be fine.
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to the sort of that marshmallow effect stuff, where delaying gratification helps you achieve longer term goals. Talk to me a little bit about the clients that you look after who are potentially going through this What Happens Next journey. What's the main motivation of them coming to you?
So for the over sort of 50s, 60s crew, it's a lot of restoring functionality into their lives. So maybe they're struggling just to go shopping and just to do some really basic stuff, or they can't do a sport like they used to be able to do. Suddenly they can't play with the grandkids like they used to be able to do. So for those that kind of audience, that's really important, just to restore those things. It's not to become athletes or anything like that. And then with the entrepreneurs, it's much more more about performance and being functioning in their day-to-day lives, because one night of bad sleep means a whole day of poor judgment and poor decision making. Then with the entrepreneurs, it tends to be a little bit more performance, talking about performance. And we actually took one of the, I think I told you about the MOI. Did I tell you about this?
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I was watching the program, The Blue Zones, which is on Netflix. Dan Buettner, and it talks about these blue zones where people are living to 100 years old or older. And in Japan, they have these things called moais, which are groups of people who meet for a common purpose. And they talk about health and well-being, and that's like a core part of what they talk about. But it could be anything. They could talk about whatever. And I thought that is amazing, and I would love to have that in the UK for entrepreneurs. So we started emoi.com, entrepreneurs MOI, and so we have a group of entrepreneurs who meet every week, and it's kind of an accountability, a mastermind, but there's a bit of health and well-being focus in there as well. Yeah, and I love it. It's brilliant. Because everything I'm trying to do is tied up into a word.
Yeah, but what you're doing there, Ben, which is really interesting, is tapping into that community stuff so that we can all support and help each other, right? And be each other's inspiration. However, part of the challenge we've all got is it's really difficult to do it on your own. So where does and you mentioned earlier on about the importance of having coaches and accountability in our lives. Where do you think that fits in to the puzzle of well-being?
So I've actually realized the most important thing that we do is that for the entrepreneurs is the meeting. So we do online coaching, we have online workouts, we have nutrition and all that sort of stuff. But actually, if we met once a week, Chris, and you were like, right, I'm committing to go for a run tomorrow. That's you don't want to let me down.
Yeah.
And that's where the accountability comes in. If you've got a group of mates, we talked about connection earlier. This is kind of solving that problem as well. You've got a group of mates, and you might be meeting online, whatever. You don't want to let those people down. You don't want to be the guy who comes along next week and says, "Oh, I didn't do any of that."
Yeah.
So that's where the accountability comes in.
It's what you said earlier. It's coming back to that element. As social animals, that can be a driver to every other element of our lives, right?
Yeah, and it's the progress as well. The progress you make, because how often have you, in the past, have you done like a quarterly goal setting thing? You're like, right, I'm going to do this, put these goals down. Yeah, love that. Got my purpose, got everything. Put that in a drawer, and then see you later. Yeah. I forgot about it. Yeah. And then next week you're like, I can't remember what was on that piece of paper.
Well, so I think there's a scary thing to do, but the one that I've realised that's necessary in my life is making it public. So my big one next is Ride London. I'm doing 103 miles at the end of May. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I'm talking about it quite a lot. I am absolutely petrified. I'm out every weekend. Literally, I'm a half man, half bike at the minute because I'm on the bike so much. But I made it public.
Yeah.
When I wrote the Kindness Project book, I made it public that I was doing it. And it's that accountability, because it's public and you can't avoid it, is quite motivational actually. It's an interesting thing. You put the pressure on yourself intentionally, don't you? And it's like it is something that I've been pondering though, and I've been talking about it with clients. I've been talking about it with a lot of people. I'm quite driven in some aspects of my life, and I was talking to Cassie the other day about getting the balance right between being happy in the moment and being focused on the future. So when we think, this might be a bit deep to end the interview
That's
on,
all right.
Ben, but I'm just
That's
curious
cool.
about your opinion on it.
Yeah.
When we think about our own mental well-being and happiness, how important is it, do you think, to think about the future or now? Where do we get the balance right between the two?
Yeah. It's something I probably also think about, and I recently sort of found out last year that I'm a futuristic visionary according to my Clifton Strength. So I think about the future a lot. But then, and I thought that I made enough time for the now, but only really having a child, and which has forced me to stop and really be in the moment. This last few weeks has made me realize that I was not spending enough time in the moment. So that's something I've kind of realized recently is actually I don't need to be in the office at 6 a.m. Don't need to be in the gym at 6 a.m. working out and then over here working until 7 o'clock in the evening. Like it's probably that's not really fulfilling.
Yeah, it's balance,
actually.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, like sort of having conversations with my clients and certainly me, and I think balance is probably the wrong word because there's no such thing as perfect balance. It's all like it changes all the time, doesn't it? But if we're more conscious of it, we can just make sure that we're thinking about it, which is great.
One last thing on that then. So my coach, so I'm a member of Strategic Coach, and so Dan Sullivan would say, if it's motivating and fascinating, then I'm going to do it. And he's 80.
Yeah.
So he's still coaching. If it's motivating me, if it's fascinating me, I'm into it. If it's not, then it's time to go.
That is a great perspective, and it's really interesting because I've never done strategic coaching, even though I've been to a couple of their events, and I know Dan Sullivan's a big advocate of if I'm loving it and I'm intellectually stimulated, and I'm meeting people who are interested, why stop? And that's what Happens Next is about. That's about us having better conversations about saying this phase of whoever's life. I'm not quite there yet. I'm thinking about it quite a lot. This phase, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s of anybody's life can be whatever you make it. But and Dan Sullivan's a massive advocate for that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think as humans we want growth, don't we? We want to be making progress, and whatever that might look like, it might not, as soon as you start to regress, retire maybe, and don't have a purpose, that's where things can go really, really not well.
Yeah, I agree. Tell me, Ben, where people can find you online or, wherever. Where can people get in touch?
Okay, so www.wit.fit for your wellbeing assessment. That's a Super 6 score. It's a free test. Go and do it. Tell you where you're at. And if you want to follow me, Instagram at Coach Ben Price. And then we've got LinkedIn as well. So at Coach Ben Price.
Thank you so much for today, mate. I've really enjoyed talking, and hopefully the questions weren't too challenging, but really curious about your thoughts in all these areas. If you're watching, hopefully you've found that useful, and we'll make sure that on the comments we put links to everything Ben's up to. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on What Happens Next soon.
If you've enjoyed this interview and you're looking for more from What Happens Next, there's one place you can find everything. Simply visit whathappensnext.life for all of the interviews we've done so far, the opportunity to take the quiz, the opportunity to sign up for the waiting list for the book, and much, much more. So that was Ben's insight, and I'm sure, when I interviewed Ben, I got so much from the interview, and I'm sure you did too. That's it for this week. Have a lovely week, and we'll see you on the podcast soon.